They're two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorka.
Thanks for joining us and welcome to another episode of the Happy Women Podcast. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorka.
And from break-ins to meltdowns, we've got a lot to talk about today. And here's a spoiler alert, Katie. It is not great for the Secret Service, that's for sure, and probably for the people being protected by them. So let's jump into it, because obviously we know about the massive failures that happened with the Secret Service, at least the people who were in Butler, Pennsylvania, who were supposed to be surveying the venue. I think President Trump's agents did what they could to try to keep him safe, but there have been some big failures at that agency. And I know you found an article about some of those failures that are pretty embarrassing and are worth chatting about, because this is a group of individuals who are supposed to be tasked with keeping some of our most important political assets safe.
Well, let's start with the fact that we're now about 30 days past the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, and we still don't have answers, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the bottom line. But the thing that really struck me was this new article that's come out from Susan Crabtree at Real Clear Politics. She's just been doing a great job covering the Secret Service. This is her latest article, and it is a deep, deep dive. She's obviously got people on the inside who are sort of telling her some of what's going on that's not coming out publicly. The article is entitled "Dissension, Toxicity Plagued Trump's Secret Service Detail Before Assassination Attempt." She really goes into detail. I won't burden you with all of it, but a couple things that really stood out for me, just talking about the lack of professionalism and the lack of accountability and professional courtesy, and a lot of tension going on in the Secret Service is what she's revealing, particularly on Trump's detail. So she tells the story of two Secret Service agents who were part of the detail at Mar-a-Lago. They were on duty and they fell asleep during their detail, and one of the other agents came upon them, and rather than nudge them, wake them up, tell them to get back on, get back with the program, and then I think report it to leadership so that they are held accountable. Instead, this other agent's response was to take a picture and post it on social media.
Now, I guess that spreads the word, right? I mean, that's the ultimate in whistleblowing, but you probably want to take that to your supervisors, I would imagine.
100%. It's so unprofessional. The other thing that's really big in this story is talking about the fact that they seem now to have identified who was the agent in charge for the Butler event. It was a woman. In this particular article, she declines to name the person, but I guess it's known. So now the question will be, over the days and weeks ahead, will this name come out? Will this person be held responsible? And I'm sorry, but with all of this focus and spotlight on the Secret Service and their failings, I am just shocked at this latest story that's come out about the Salon.
I know. Okay. So I actually correlated this on the morning show that I host in LA. So, Boeing, right? Boeing has been having all kinds of problems. They've had whistleblowers that are showing up no longer on the planet. They've had all of these problems with their planes. So what do they do to try to save their reputation? They decide to send a couple of astronauts up to outer space for like a 2-day tour. And what happens? They get stuck and they're not coming home from the space station until February. Not a great move for Boeing to not be able to get their tin can back down to Earth. And so I was laughing to myself thinking, this is exactly what the Secret Service has going on now. It seems like bad story after bad story is coming out, and there's like no attempt to try to right the ship or fix it from a public relations standpoint. What I think should have happened after the Butler, Pennsylvania attack is regular press conferences to get in front of this story, to share information, to try to make it look at least like they're being transparent. I think they had that female agent's name that you're talking about even a few weeks ago when they did those hearings with the now Secret Service director, interim director, and the former one, Kimberly Cheadle, because members of Congress referenced the fact that they had an idea as to who this person was that's being protected. And look, you don't want this person to get hurt, but you have to have somebody who made a decision that led to this incident. And I feel sorry for the Butler police who have been sitting there going, we did everything. We were taking the orders and the direction from the Secret Service, and they look terrible because of it. So if you haven't heard the Salon story, this one is something else. So apparently Kamala Harris, at the end of July, I think it was July 27th, had an event at a theater in Butterfield in Massachusetts. And so the Secret Service, as they do, they come in ahead of time, they sweep the surrounding buildings, and there was a salon that was in the back of the theater. So they asked this woman if she would mind shutting down, and she said she would. She would shut down so that they could make sure that the area was safe and cordoned off. They had bomb-sniffing dogs go through and everything. She leaves the place, but she has security cameras up. And she notices, and she went with this. Again, she's another one who sent the pictures out to the media. Business Insider and others got a hold of this story. And it shows that the Secret Service agents came to her salon, taped her outside camera with duct tape, and then proceeded to pick the lock and break into her salon where I guess they used the restroom. They were looking at stuff on her desk. They were laughing and yucking it up, taking pictures. Well, little did they know that she didn't just have an outside camera. She had a camera on the inside. And so there's footage of these Secret Service agents who have gone through this woman's office now just to use the bathroom. And they literally, it was like breaking and entering. I mean, this is the Secret Service today, and we're trusting them with valuable people that are supposed to be running our country. And this is the kind of behavior that you're getting. And it's not great, especially when people are already scrutinizing your actions.
I don't know. It just leaves me asking what has happened to our culture.
I know.
I really think there's a bigger question here. The fact that we have sort of abandoned teaching foundational American principles, that we've stopped teaching even virtue or right behavior. It's now it's supposed to be all about everybody gets a prize. We want equal outcomes, right? And people aren't held accountable. And it's so sad for me when I think about the difference between, say, the greatest generation and where we are today, and sort of the lack of honor, the lack of integrity. And I honestly, I really find it sad. And I hope that I will say this, I don't just hope, I do think it's a wake up call. I haven't told you this, but I got a phone call. I got an email the other day from a woman that I met, probably 3 years ago. I was doing an event in Denver. This was just as the Great Parent Awakening was happening. And it was all about, how do you engage in politics and how do we make a difference? And a woman was there and said she had this idea, that there must be a way to mobilize grandparents, right? Everybody at that point was focusing on parents, but grandparents are an incredible resource. And she reached back out to me the other day, God bless her. And she said she did it. She actually created the organization. And I hope we'll get her on as a guest to talk about her journey, because I find it so interesting. She's now up to 500 members in Colorado. And I think she's in a number of states as well, and growing. But, I think that this is a time for grandparents.
Yeah.
Who have a very deep sense of the American culture, of what we really stand for, of what right behavior is, to engage both with their children, but also their grandchildren, to sort of reinstill this sense of sort of personal integrity and what is our culture all about, and why is it worth fighting for it, and why is it worth restoring it?
And I think grandparents also are uniquely positioned because there's a respect, at least in most cases, and also time. A lot of parents are still working, or they're still in the workforce. They have a million things going on. Grandparents, retirees are such a valuable asset to a movement, especially talking to younger people, or just, having the time to volunteer for stuff like that. So good for her. They should not be a forgotten class. And I just think your comments on the culture are so right when we talk about the Secret Service. I think it's not just a culture, but all of our government agencies that have been impacted by DEI, trying to get diversity, equity, and inclusion. And look, I think many of the Secret Service Secret Service agents, just like I think most law enforcement, that most people go in and they are well-intentioned. But you have to ask if at the highest levels, we're still prioritizing getting the best and brightest, or if we're just trying to bring in everybody for that sense of inclusion, because these are jobs where it's a life and death situation. And to have people think that it's appropriate to fall asleep when they're protecting a former president or break into someone's business because they have to use the bathroom. I mean, these are the kinds of things that make you question, is this really the best that we can do? And I think there has to be a deep, deep look at all of our government agencies, especially the ones that are so relied upon to provide life and death security for not just, I mean, for all of us really, but certainly for the people that they're there to protect. I feel like we've seen this downward trend from the military on with just not doing what we used to do. And that is encouraging people to be merit-based and to have people actually work for something instead of just say, oh, well, we need this, we need a woman, we need this person, we need this skin color. And all of a sudden we're letting everybody in.
Well, I have to say, I think this was one of Trump's biggest achievements during his term, was the fact that he recognized one of the big problems that we have with government is that you get a government job, it is a job for life. It is virtually impossible to fire anybody in government. And he realized what a problem that was. And he changed the rules. Okay, he didn't make them perfect, but he made it a little bit easier to let people go. And I think that's going to have to be a big part of the reform. A job in government should not be a job for life, nor should there not be accountability.
Yeah, unless you're deserving of it. I mean, you should have to work for the living that you make. All right. So speaking of President Trump, you are the chairwoman of the GOP in Fairfax County. A lot of places will share their spaces with Trump headquarters when there are GOP offices. And there have been a lot of stories. We're talking about security lapses and all kinds of craziness that's been going on. But the Trump campaign was actually broken into in Virginia. There were a couple of break-ins, actually. What happened there?
Yeah, so I got the call yesterday morning. I'm a little unclear because I was actually told there were 2 break-ins, but I think I'm only seeing one reported in the news. But the good news is that one, they actually have security footage. They have posted the face of the person online, which I think is fascinating. I don't know that they have yet found the person. It's pretty clear pictures too. I mean, you can really see this person's face. Looks like a man, I would guess in his 30s or 40s, unknown what he was up to, but that was just, probably half an hour away from us. We do share space with the Trump campaign. So we've had to up our security, right? We've had to install security cameras and do all kinds of things, and it raises all kinds of questions. What are they up to? Are they trying to plant bugs? Are they trying to sabotage?
Right.
What was he just a home, like a whatever, trying to steal something of value? Who knows?
We don't know what he took or what he was going after. So we don't know exactly what the target was.
It's not clear. I just think it's really interesting that the campaign office was targeted.
Well, and then especially when you add in the fact that both the Trump campaign and they're investigating the Harris campaign as well had a cyber attack against them from, I believe, Iran, and that was over this past weekend. President Trump's team has said that they released a large amount of information to media outlets that was taken from the campaign. Whatever information that was, I don't know exactly. But this is sort of the new battleground for us. And you have actors like Iran who can cause a lot of chaos. And they've already said that they want to cause chaos in this year's elections. They've also said that they want to assassinate President Trump. They have known threats against him from Iran. So it is concerning. We've got the FBI looking into it, but that's another organization that I think many of us have just lost faith in.
Yeah, and this really points to a bigger problem with our national security. And I think what happened with the whole interview between Trump and Musk last night, the fact that it was delayed for 40 minutes, because of a cyber attack is also a part of this problem. And it really, that Sebastian and I for a while worked, in this national security space. We did not work for the government prior to the Trump campaign, but we did a lot of training of FBI and military and looked a lot at the whole world of sort of information operations and information warfare. And the bottom line is our enemies today, Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, they know that they cannot defeat us militarily, not in the old way, right? And so what they've all done is they have all gone heavily into information warfare, which unfortunately in this day and age is actually quite easy because of social media and our reliance on digital technology. But I'm telling you, everything that I hear from people who are still on the inside, we are way behind on this game. That shutdown of Twitter last night should never have happened. And it just really concerns me that our national security apparatus, first of all, I think many of them are focused on the wrong things for political reasons, way too much focus on DEI. And, our military has openly said their goal by 2040 is to reach 50-50 parity of women and men. How about your goal is to keep us safe from our foreign enemies? My goodness, come on. It's
easier to divide up the force 50-50 instead of actually worrying about what you're there to do. That's the ridiculous part.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So, I will only say that I think the good news is that President Trump, I think, understands this better and better all the time. He himself has been so much the target of misinformation, disinformation, that I think he understands the importance of it. So I hope when he is elected, that this will be an important emphasis of his administration.
Well, I do want to just drill in just a little bit into your national security background, because I think this is really timely and important for the conversation. What kind of stuff, when you talk about information and you would investigate that, what kind of stuff do these foreign actors, maybe even in our country, but what are these bad actors, probably more appropriately, what do they look for? What are they trying to accomplish? Are they trying to shut people down? Are they trying to steal information? What typically is the end goal? What do we need to understand about that?
Okay, so more than anything, what they're actually trying to do is to sow discord. They're trying to create turmoil in the United States. So I'll give you a perfect example. Like at the time that we were working on these issues, it was really the height of jihadist terrorism, right?
Sure.
And so we were able to see ways that, for example, ISIS, one of the things they would do, they would send out a notice through email or through social media that there was going to be a pro-Muslim demonstration here. And this is a particular incident that happened in Texas. There would be a pro-Muslim demonstration here. But then they would also send out a notice that there will be an anti-Muslim demonstration. Oh, right next door, right?
Oh, interesting.
Yes. Creating, and this is, it's typical of the kind of thing you'll see. So many of the accounts on social media are not real people. They're bots. I mean, I think we're all getting a little bit better at recognizing them. I mean, I don't know about you, but the number of supposed high-ranking, attractive members of the U.S. military who are trying to reach out to me and tell me I look nice.
You look beautiful.
I mean, those are bots. Those are, right? These are, it's probably some 22-year-old Chinese guy sitting in a, bunker somewhere feeding out this misinformation. We know that the amount of money that countries like China and Russia invest in this is in the millions, tens of millions, right? To some extent, they maintain their traditional military, as do we. But I would say as a portion of their military spending, they invest much more in information operations than we do. And, the other thing is we're way too cautious. Our anything that we do in the information space has to go through layers and layers of approvals, and then it's delayed by days of time. I'll just give you one last other example that really stands out in my mind.
I think this is fascinating. I love this.
All right. So there was a moment during the Iraq War when suddenly a film clip appeared that purported to be U.S. soldiers raping an Iraqi woman. It turns out that was put out. It was created by I don't know who created it, right? Not our side. It was a clip from a Brian De Palma film. But they were so good at putting it together and putting it out there, and it generated a lot of outrage. That's the type of thing. That's information warfare. That's the type of thing that they can do.
So more than stealing information, and I know there's a market for that too, but more than stealing information, or they're trying to make us implode basically from within. And you've got a lot of young minds full of mush, and probably other people as well who fall victim to that. I mean, it's probably fair to say, I would imagine, that some of the pro-Hamas stuff could have been generated from overseas too. Do we think that that's?
We know for a fact. So there have been a couple reports that have come out that have shown millions of dollars. There's a particular guy named, it's called the Singam Network. If I remember, he's got millions of dollars. He made a lot of money. He's an American, but he made a lot of money in the 70s from tech. And now he's, for whatever reason, very closely associated with China. He poured millions of dollars in to support those protests. There was 100% foreign money coming in for those protests. But I also want to say, because I've been reading Megan Basham's new book, because we're going to be interviewing her next week. And her book is about basically how big leftist progressive foundations have used money to sort of infiltrate the American evangelical community and to pull some of their leading pastors and communities over to the left to support things like equity and climate change and reproductive rights. And I just found her analysis super, super interesting. She's not talking so much about foreign money, but about domestic money. Yeah. And how they are able to use outright grants and inviting people to big fancy conferences and giving them a really nice big platform and giving them awards, to sort of subtly pull people over to the left. So I'm finding her book just utterly fascinating.
It's really interesting, because when politics touches places where you think politics doesn't live, it really does make you open your eyes, and you really have to question everything, even organizations that you've trusted. I think that's what so many of us have been on the journey with the mainstream news media. I know my grandparents trusted Tom Brokaw. They trusted Walter Cronkite. Maybe they could have trusted Walter Cronkite, but they used to trust the news media. And I think this is very much the same thing, whether it's the church, whether it's the media as the institution, whether, as we talked about earlier, it's the Secret Service or the FBI. It's really kind of a sad awakening right now, where we're realizing that there's not a whole lot of places that we can trust.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, I do think it's legitimate when you see the way our government has been weaponized against us. But I will also say that this is what our foreign enemies have been working at. This is what they want to see. They want to see us lose faith in each other and lose faith in our institutions. And
really, honestly, it could be, if people actually if they were well intentioned. I mean, my major is in journalism and PR. When you go through public relations and you go through crisis communications, because there's always going to be a crisis, and what we're talking about now is when there is one, the first thing that you have to do is you have to get out in front of it, and you have to provide information to people, whether that information you think is going to be damaging to you or not. You've got to get ahead of the story so that you can define how people consume it. And so, circling back to kind of where we started today, the Secret Service is that perfect example of that. You have these things, right, that are happening, and there hasn't been the effort to try to correct the record or to even give the American people information that may be damaging, but that could take you on the road to repair. And I think that's where we're seeing these huge failings, where people are getting disenfranchised, and where maybe those campaigns are working because either these government agencies don't know how to fix it, or they're afraid of letting go because they think somehow it's going to be a loss of power.
And conversely, I think it's why President Trump is so successful, because he is being utterly transparent. The fact that he was, willing to sit on that call last night and answer any question that Elon Musk was willing to ask. I think that's the America that I think many people want to return to. We don't want to see this, Time magazine ridiculous cover of Kamala painted as a saint.
Without her answering a question on the inside. They didn't even do it.
Exactly. She will not speak openly to the American people. And Trump is the very opposite. And sure, sometimes he comes across as unpolished or whatever, you throw whatever criticism you want, but oh my gosh, he's unguarded. He's open. He's honest. I want that. I want that authenticity and that transparency. I want to know that I can trust who's in charge, not that they're selling me some story like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Right. And the sad thing is with them as well, and this, it all kind of fits together, just the immense lack of transparency that administration has been through. I mean, the fact that nobody said a word about Joe Biden's condition until it was almost impossible to hide it after the debates. And they even were attempting to hide it by holding back all of their fundraising to say he made $42 million after his debate performance to try to sell to the American people like somehow it was great. And now all of a sudden we're hearing the stories. And we heard from Joe Biden this past week saying, yeah, it was Nancy Pelosi who came to me and cut me out. And they didn't think that I had a winning campaign. And whatever it is, this is the kind of stuff, and some Americans are fine with it. If I were a Democrat today, I would be fully insulted by the fact that the party that I am loyal to lied to me, gaslit Americans for saying there wasn't a problem there, no transparency, and then no explanation. Just, we just made this change and he made a decision and he's out and she's in. It's like, it is unbelievable the lengths that people will go to protect their own political authority, their own political power. And that's why I love President Trump too. He may not say everything perfectly. He may be rough around the edges, but I would rather know him and know that than be lied to every single day. And then when you dare question, be gaslit and said, no, you're the crazy one. Inflation's fine. We're totally safe. Biden's totally with it. These are full blown lies that have been sent to people that they're expecting to have vote for them.
Honestly, the only way a person delivers a perfect speech is if they're reading from a teleprompter. And then, it's a speech that's been written by speechwriters and it's all geared toward, delivering a particular message. And it's, I know that speeches are a necessary part of our political life, but they have their place. But when you're having to get to know a candidate and make a decision about a candidate, I want to hear from that candidate. And I don't understand how Democrats are not getting a little bit frustrated that they are not hearing word one from their candidate.
I know, not one. And as President Trump has said, as JD Vance has said, we have the honor and respect for the American people. So we'll show up. We'll show up and do the interviews, whether it's with Elon Musk for 2 hours on all kinds of topics like Trump did, or JD Vance going to CNN and interviewing with Dana Bash. And he gets questioned about his record and then says, well, wouldn't it be nice if Kamala Harris would be asked these questions? You're pointing it out in their sphere so that people might feel empowered to ask a few questions of their own. Yeah. But thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate 5-star reviews. If you're liking the podcast, please rate us with 5-star. Leave us a comment in the comments section. Check us out on YouTube as well. We have a pretty thriving YouTube channel at Happy Women Podcast. If you're here on YouTube, hi. And don't forget to get Katie's book, Next Gen Marxism. It's available right now wherever you get your books. And you can check her out, katiegorka.org. That's her website. Search her out on Facebook. Look for Catherine Gorka. You can find me there as well. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Jennifer Horn Radio, and on Truth and on X at Jennifer Horn. Thanks so much for joining us. It's the Happy Women Podcast.